Okay, everything coming. Yes, it looks like it's. Let's select some. Okay, nice. Hello and welcome to my channel, and this is a different video from what I normally do, but it's about a question that I get asked a lot, and that is, how do you have this setup? So how is everything connected? And a quick tip, if you are like me and you have a audio file coming from your setup and you have a camera and you want to sync them in post, what I like to do is select a drum track, anything with a, sharp transient. And that way you have my finger, and that's picked up by the microphone from the camera, and also the kick from the MC707, which shows up in the WAV file as this sharp thing, and you can align them. Anyhow, that's how I align my audio and my video in post. So back to my setup. How is this all connected? And remember, this is how I like to work. I have had this setup for about 3 years now, I think, and it has expanded over time, so I have grown with my setup. But the main brain is this Roland MC707, and it is used as a drum machine and a sequencer right now. And also I often use it for tone tracks. So yeah, there is two things I think here, and that's the data, like the Midi stuff, controlling everything, and there's the audio. So let me start by talking about the Midi. The MC707 has two MIDI ports, MIDI out ports, so that's nice. And the first one is going to my peak. So if I select that track and just hit a pad, the peak will start playing. And if you look here, you can see the Mini tower also receives MIDI information. So that means that I have the through port connected to the in MIDI port of the Mini tower. And well, yeah, that's just because I only have two MIDI ports and multiple instruments. So if I select the MIDI channel, the MC707 second channel, which is for the Mini tower, you will hear the Mini tower playing. So that's the first MIDI port, and the second MIDI port is the same, just going to the Moog Subsequent and the YC61. Now the YC61 is a little bit different because it also doubles as a MIDI keyboard. So I want to play here, and then I want it to go to the Roland MC707, which should distribute the notes to whichever instrument I want to play right at that moment. And luckily that works. So what I have to do is make sure that local control is off, and that means that the YC61 sound generator doesn't listen to its own keyboard. It may sound strange, but if it would do that and I would hit a note here, it would play the piano sound from the YC, but also another synth possibly, and that's not what you always want. So with local control off, it doesn't listen to the keypad, but instead it only sends the MIDI notes coming from this MIDI port right here into the MC707. So the MIDI flow is starting here, usually going to here, and then depending on which track I have selected, you will hear either a synthesizer or a onboard audio. Yeah, that's the Midi. I don't have any Midi going into the collider because it has a very fast clock divider, and I don't like that for delays, so I usually just tap it out. So there is no Midi cable going to the collider. And there's also no USB connections used in this setup, but I do have them connected to my computer. So whenever I am working in the DAW and I want to use the subsequent, for example, I can do that via MIDI over USB. So yeah, that's the data. It starts here, goes through the 707, which decides which instrument or which track, tone track or whatnot, will play at that moment. Yeah, so that's the MIDI part, and then there is the audio part. I have a Behringer XR18. It's outside of the frame, you can't see it, but it's 18 inputs. I don't use them all. There's one left, so maybe I can get one more synthesizer. Yeah. Anyhow, I have this tablet right here, and I use that to control it, so I can look at the screen and show you which numbers I'm using, which inputs. The peak is going to 1 and 2. So these two cables, stereo jack cable, go into channel 1 and 2. And then there's 2 stereo pairs going out of the MC707, and I'll explain why that is in a bit. And then there is channel 7 for the mini tower, channel 8 for the subsequent. Then I have the return signal from the collider on 9 and 10, and then I have on 11 and 12, you can't see it, but there's a Zoom B3 bass guitar pedal, which I use a lot, but not in this setup. Then there is one for the Studio V3, and then there is channel 14, which is not used right now, and then there is 15 and 16 for the YC61. And the last 2 channels are USB audio, so I can't plug anything into those ports. Now, as I mentioned, I have 2 stereo outs from the Roland MC707, and I use 2 because that way I can decide if a onboard sound, like a drum track or a tone track, will go out of these 2 or out of these 2, and these 2, the assignable outs, are also sent through the collider. So, for example, the drum track doesn't go through the collider, but let me create a tone track. If I don't do anything, it goes out of the main out, which is dry, and I can use like the onboard reverb. But usually I don't like that for the tone tracks, so I have it dry. And then I set it to go to the assignable outs, these 2, and they are also fed through the collider. Wow. I have to engage it. Ooh, yeah. So there it is. And that is why I use 2 assignable, 2 stereo outputs from the MC707, and I'm really happy with that, because that way I can get this large, nice reverb from the collider and some delays, and I still have the onboard reverb and delay for example, my drums, which are usually like not as lush and not as long. So this is how my setup is connected, and I hope I covered everything, and if there's anything that is still unclear, please ask me in the comments. I will usually respond quite quickly. And yeah, this is my happy place. You could see in the beginning, it takes only, well, maybe 2 minutes, I don't know, 1 minute to get everything powered up and everything is connected. So that's how I like to work. I don't have a lot of free time, so to say. So when I'm home and I get one hour maybe, I don't want to have to plug everything in and change the routings and stuff. And I know that can be fun for some, but well, yeah, not for me, not at this moment. So maybe in the future, but that's how it is. And yeah, I hope you found this video useful, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye. Yeah, 2 keyboards. Same subsequent. I only record this one. like the Midi notes, so that's why I usually play on this one. So yeah, let's say I like this. Let's do it double time. So, 5 minutes? I don't know. Anyhow, you get the idea, right? It's easy, it's quick, and it's fun. So yeah, that's what matters to me.